Powered by Riverside.
Well, welcome to the A Train Video Stream Podcast. And we have got a lot, and I mean, we have a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. Now, I know it's football season, but there is so much to talk about regarding a particular league. So let me just welcome you once again, everybody, to the A Train Sports Talk Video live stream, also aptly called The Ride. I'm your host, Anthony Smith, and we've got to talk about what's going on. As I pull up my notes here, because let me just lay it out like this. We're going to talk about the WNBA. Yes, that's what we're talking about. And I know some of you are like, why are we talking about the WNBA? But we're talking about much more than just what's happening on the court. We're talking about the Indiana Fever. We're talking about Caitlin Clark. We're talking Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. We're talking head coach Stephanie White. We're talking Sophie Cunningham. We're talking about the incredible television numbers the WNBA is putting up. Now, I get it. Football season is upon us. We should be talking about the preseason games that took place last night. There are games taking place tonight. But we're talking about the incredible television numbers the WNBA is putting up. And we're talking about the growing culture war conversations surrounding the league. Because here's the thing. The WNBA is more popular than it has ever been. People are watching. Regardless of the comments, and trust me, I have this app called the Newsbreak app. And I read the comments. And a lot of the comments are, I would not watch that. Or the only reason I'm watching it is because of. Either way it goes, they're still watching it. I don't care if they're only watching to see Caitlin Clark. Or they may be watching to put down Angel Reese. Yes, that's been the norm since they both entered the league. You can't talk about one without talking about the other. I don't even know why they are comparing the two because, for one, they play two different positions. Let's get that straight. You are comparing a point guard to a pretty much a forward, an inside player, which means they have two different skill sets. You call Angel Reese me-bounds because all she does is rebound her own missed shots. Can I tell you something? When she was in Chicago, in my estimation, Chicago was setting her up to fail. Atlanta has her in a position to succeed because they have a team and an organization around her. So let's get that straight. Don't get it twisted. Nothing against Caitlin Clark either. I think Caitlin Clark is a phenomenal talent. She's not the best player in the league. Ooh, right there. That was a mic drop. Because now, the way this culture war is going, if you say something negative against Caitlin Clark, you're deemed a hater or a racist. Hey, I'm just throwing it out there like that because that's the culture that we live in. Because here's the thing. WNBA is more popular than it's ever been. People are watching, people are talking, and people are arguing. And when people are doing all three of those things, you've got a sports league that has officially entered another level. But with that popularity comes a new set of challenges. The question tonight isn't whether the NBA is growing. No doubt about it, it's growing. The numbers tell us it is. The question is, what is the WNBA going to do with this growth? Can the league take all this attention and turn it into sustainable success? Can it keep basketball at the center of the conversation? Or is the culture war conversation becoming almost as big as basketball itself? Now, that's something for you to think about right there. That's what we're getting into this evening. So whether you're watching from abroad, get comfortable, get in the comments, tell me what you think, because this is going to be a good one. So let's ride this train on the tracks and enjoy the ride. Yes, I'm back. So the Fever are big business. All right, let's get this thing rolling. And I want to start with something that really can't be debated. The Indiana Fever are big business. Look at what's happening with the television numbers. The Fever continue to be one of the biggest television draws in the WNBA. We're talking about games averaging more than 2 million viewers. We're talking about games reaching audiences of 3 million viewers or more. And here's something that really jumped out at me. Every single Indiana Fever regular season game is being distributed nationally this season. Every one. That's never happened before in WNBA history. As a matter of fact, there's not a lot of teams in the NBA that can say, hey, our teams are being televised every single game. Now, if that is happening, I stand corrected. I know they got like NBA networks. They got all these streaming devices. You can stream them. But no, usually the NBA has like double hitters, triple hitters, and it's not the same teams in succession. And whether you love Caitlin Clark, whether you're tired of hearing about Caitlin Clark, or whether you're somewhere in between, you've got to acknowledge what's happening. Yeah, you kind of have to acknowledge her like Roman Reigns. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is going to ruffle some feathers. Is she top 5 in the WNBA? No. Is she top 10 in the WNBA? That's a hard maybe. Is she top 15 in the WNBA? In my estimation, definitely so. People are watching the Indiana Fever, and that's not just Caitlin Clark. Kelsey Mitchell has become a major star. Aaliyah Boston is one of the best young players in the league. The Fever have developed an identity. And when you put all that together, Indiana has become appointment TV. That's important because a player can create attention, but a franchise can create a fan base. And trust me, they do have one. Some keep it basketball, some of them don't. Like I said, I have what's called the Newsbreak app. I read the comments, and sometimes I have to set some people straight. Yeah, I do. I have no problem bringing the smoke. That's what I do. When your comments aren't about basketball, I try to hone you back in. Keep it basketball. I'll even go back to the 80s. You had Magic Johnson. You had Larry Bird. Magic Johnson, a black man. Larry Bird, a white man. They actually became best of friends. But we didn't have social media. We didn't have chat rooms. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Snapchat. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have people putting damning comments on a message board. At best, sometimes we had what was called tape delayed TV. The game was recorded and put on tape delayed. Bottom line is, if you want to use it like this, we were forced to watch Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, the LA Lakers, Showtime, the Boston Celtics, blue collar workman type mentality. We were forced to watch them grow a league that was in essence dying. Let that sink in. We're going to get to this culture war. Trust me, we're going to get to this because now that's what it's become. But once again, a player can create attention, but a franchise can create a fan base. And that's what I think we're seeing with the Fever. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Are the Indiana Fever the most important franchise in the WNBA right now? I'm not asking if they're the best team. There are other teams that have that moniker. You still have the Las Vegas Aces to contend with. You have, Miss Well said, you have the Atlanta Dream to deal with. You have a lot of teams, better records, better roster construction around them. I'm asking if they're the most important team when it comes to growing the league. Because when you look at television, when you look at social media, when you look at a national coverage, when you look at the conversations happening around the team, it's hard to argue against Indiana. So put that in the comments. Are the Fever carrying the WNBA right now? Let's talk about it. Now we get into the WNBA's culture war problem. Now, let's move into the uncomfortable part of this conversation. Because the WNBA isn't just becoming more popular, it's becoming more culturally relevant. And those are two different things. When a sports league gets this much attention, you're going to bring in people from all different backgrounds and all different, I hate to say this, political perspective. You've got longtime WNBA fans. You got people who discovered the league because of Caitlin Clark. Can't deny that. Some people let it be known the only time I watch is when Caitlin Clark is playing. You got people who came because they love women's basketball. I have no problem with the sport. I tune in from time to time to get a basketball perspective, not an argumentative perspective. You've got people who came because they're interested in the personalities. And trust me, there are some personalities. Let me just name a few. A'ja Wilson, for one. Everybody's enamored with her in the Bam Adebayo relationship. You have Sophie Cunningham. We're going to get into her too. You have Angel Reese, Bayou Barbie, or the Atlanta Barbie, whatever Barbie you want to call her. Some of y'all call her me-bounds. But if you look at Chicago Sky and their rebounding, they're not one of the best rebounding teams in the league. That went to Atlanta. Atlanta, one of the best teams when it comes to the fast break. Why? Not because of me-bounds, but because of D-bounds. It's called defensive rebounds starting the fast break. Check the records. As a matter of fact, Angel Reese averaged more defensive rebounds than she does her own rebounds. Let's set that straight. Let that marinate. And you got people who came because they want to debate the politics and culture surrounding the sport. That's what happens when you become a mainstream sports property. And now we're seeing the WNBA caught up in what we're calling the culture war. But here's the question I want to throw out there. Did the WNBA create the culture war, or did the culture war simply find the WNBA because the league became big enough to matter? Let me throw that out there again. Did the WNBA create the culture war, Or did the culture war simply find the WNBA because the league became big enough to matter? That's an important distinction because the NFL deals with politics, the NBA deals with politics, college sports deal with politics, Major League Baseball deals with politics. Once your league gets big enough, people aren't just watching the game anymore. They're watching the personalities, they're watching the interviews, they're watching social media, they're watching what players say, they're watching what coaches say, and they're waiting for the next controversy. That's where the WNBA is now. But here's where I think the league needs to be careful. Controversy gets clicks. Basketball builds leagues. Do I need to say that one more time? I think maybe I do need to say that one more time. Controversy gets clicks. Basketball builds leagues. Those aren't the same thing. You can get millions of views from a controversial statement, but you build lifelong fans by giving people great basketball. Don't believe me? Listen to talk about the NBA, and you'll understand what I'm saying. And I think that's the line the WNBA has to walk right now. But now, there's Sophie Cunningham and the transgender athlete debate. And I know a lot of people are going to have something to say about this. And I'm not being careful when I get into this segment of the show, because I'm going to have my take on it too. I'm going to say it like this. I have a granddaughter. No, she's not playing no sports right now. She's not old enough. But you can kind of tell where I'm leading with that. And whatever I say, I'm going to say it unapologetically. I don't mind your comments. I want your comments. This is still America where we have freedom of speech. What I say may ruffle your feathers, and I will not apologize. The one thing my dad told me years ago, he was the pastor of a church, he would even say this across the pulpit: morals and values don't change. People do. Let me give that to you one more time. Morals and values don't change. People do. So now let's get into the biggest controversy surrounding the conversation: the transgender athlete debate. Sophie Cunningham's comments brought this issue directly to the WNBA spotlight. And once again, you got people on completely opposite sides of the issue. It's like tug of war. You got this group on this side pulling this way. You got this group on this side pulling away. And it's a massive tug of war. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, it's not going away no time soon. But let's slow this down for a minute, because there are actually two separate conversations happening. The first conversation: what should the rules be for transgender athletes participating in women's professional sports? That's a legitimate sports policy question. Leagues have to establish eligibility requirements. They have to consider competitive fairness. They have to consider player safety. They have to consider inclusion. They have to consider the law. And guess what? That's complicated. But then there's a second conversation. How do we talk about people? How do we talk about people who disagree? And that's where things can go off the rails. The WNBA recently addressed this issue after a task force meeting involving league and team leadership. The league condemned what it described as bad faith efforts to demean or marginalize people. And I think there's an important distinction here. You can believe there should be restrictions. and I do. You can believe there shouldn't be restrictions. I disagree. You can believe the league needs a completely different policy. That depends. Those are positions people can debate. But there's a difference between debating a policy and attacking a person, to which that's why Sophie Cunningham came under attack, because some people just didn't understand her language. She didn't say that she was against transgender people. She was not demeaning transgender people. She was just talking about the unfair advantage. And some people took it and ran the wrong way with it, because everybody has an interpretation, just like everybody has an opinion, just like everybody has a backside that they sit on. And sometimes it produces a stench and it doesn't smell good. And I think that's where everybody needs to draw the line. Because if we're going to have this conversation, let's actually have the conversation. Don't shut people down simply because they disagree. I mean, some of y'all who are watching this may be watching the live stream version right now. Probably done shut me off already, and I don't mind. Some of y'all probably sharing this, like, look at what he done said. He shouldn't have said that. Can I tell you something? This is my platform. Just like you have an opinion, you have a right to say what you want to say. Guess what? I have that very same right. But at the same time, don't use a sports policy disagreement as an excuse to harass somebody. We can disagree without turning everybody into enemies. That's the part we have to learn. And that's especially important because these are athletes. They're basketball players. They didn't sign up to become political candidates. And that's why I have a problem with the media. Michael Jordan didn't go through this. You know why? Because he didn't talk about it. Y'all shoved a microphone in LeBron James's face and in essence told him to just shut up and dribble. You may as well be telling Sophie Cunningham the same thing too. What do I have to say to the media? I have to catch myself because I know people are watching me and I'm going to be judged by what I say. For some things, maybe the media shouldn't ask athletes. Some of y'all, I'm going to say it like this, got pissed off when you shoved the microphone in Jalen Brunson's face when asked about the New York Knicks' decision to visit the White House. He didn't give y'all the answer y'all wanted. He made it more about the team and less about his own political stance. And y'all couldn't stand him for that. Me, I applaud him for that because he didn't fall for the bait. He didn't fall for the hook, line, and sinker. That's one y'all couldn't hang out to dry. And now y'all pissed off about it. Yeah, that's to the media. Once again, they didn't sign up to become a political candidate. They signed up to play basketball. So here's my question for you. Do you think the WNBA is handling this issue correctly, or does the league need to be more direct about establishing its policy? What my take on that is, we will probably never do away with transgender athletes. But I think if they won't, I think they should have a league specifically designed for transgender athletes. And can I tell you something else? I think that's the fair assessment. And I can guarantee you, if they start their own league, if they have a transgender basketball league, if they have a transgender baseball league, if they have a transgender football league, probably flag football, whatever the case may be, I'm pretty sure with today's culture and today's society, there will be some people tune in to watch. and there will be some TV deals made. I guarantee that would happen. But do I think a transgender woman, especially since the name Enos Cantor or Cantor Freedom came up, should he be in the WNBA? Notice I don't care how you try to fix yourself or to be feminine. At the end of the day, you're still a male. And if my granddaughter was of age to play, I wouldn't want her out there against you. Find a league, find a transgender league, let them have at it. I wouldn't have nothing against them. Because if the WNBA allows this to happen, you're basically slapping women in the face, such as a Rebecca Lobo, a Maya Moore, just to name a few, or some of the great women of the past. Maybe they didn't play in the league. How about a Pat Summitt, legendary coach, Tennessee? Got a court named after her, same court where the men's play basketball. Let that sink in. So now we see that Stephanie White has her teams back. Now let's bring this conversation back to Indiana, because this is where things got really interesting. Stephanie White found herself at the center of controversy following the situation involving Sophie Cunningham and DeJounte Carrington. Some Fever fans weren't happy with White. And when she was introduced before a game against the New York Liberty, some fans booed her. Now, here's where I think we saw something important. The Fever players stepped up. Aaliyah Boston defended her coach. Kelsey Mitchell defended her coach. And Caitlin Clark also expressed support for White. And that's significant, because you can disagree with your coach. You can disagree with a decision. You can disagree with something somebody says. But when the outside noise starts getting loud, that's when you find out what kind of team you really have. And the Fever players basically said, that's our coach. That's our locker room. That's our culture. We're not going to let outside noise tear this thing apart. And then what happened? They went out there and beat the New York Liberty 106-92. Now, that's what I call letting your basketball do the talking. You don't have to win every argument on social media. Matter of fact, my word to all these WNBA players, stay off of social media. Don't worry about what these people say. Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and say it like this. To hell with them. Because at the end of the day, they really don't give a darn about you. They only care about what they can say and how they can critique you and put you down. They don't give a darn about you. So don't worry about them. Play the game. In wrestling terms, be the heel, be the villain. Sometimes you just need to go play. And that's what Indiana did. They played, they competed, and they won. So here's another question for everybody watching. Does controversy like this actually make a team stronger because it forces everybody to rally together? Or does it eventually become a distraction? Because I can make an argument both ways. And that's what makes this interesting. So now, back to the WNBA. Can the WNBA turn attention into sustainable growth? Now let's bring this whole thing home. Because this is the question I really want to leave everybody with this evening. Can the WNBA turn this explosion of attention into sustainable growth? Remember, I said earlier, controversy gets clicks, but basketball builds leagues. Because let's be honest, the WNBA has an opportunity right now that it has never had before. Television numbers are up, the national exposure is up, the Indiana Fever are driving massive interest. Caitlin Clark has brought millions of new eyes to the league. Yes, I cannot deny that. Notice I said at best she's top 15. A hard maybe on top 10, top 5, that's a hard no. I'm not degrading her. I'm not putting her down. I'm just giving you my opinion of her. I think she's a top 15 player in the league. And now the WNBA has to figure out how to keep those eyes there. And that's why I think the league has to be smart. You don't build the future around controversy. You build it around competition. You build it around stars, 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 stars. There's more than one. The league isn't built on just one player. You build it around rivalries. You build it around great games. You build it around the personalities that make people care. Around the Ozzie Fudds, the Paige Buchers, the Caitlin Clarks, the Angel Reeses, the Leah Bostons, the Aja Wilsons. The list just goes on and on and on. Caitlin Clark can open the door. But once people walk through that door, the WNBA needs to introduce them to everybody else. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Angel Reese, and all the other talented players in the league. That's how you grow. You take one superstar's popularity and use it to expose the entire league to a new generation of fans. That's the opportunity. But here's the warning. Attention isn't the same thing as loyalty. A controversy can get your attention. A viral clip can get you attention. A social media argument can get you attention. But great basketball creates fans. And great basketball over time builds leagues. That's what the WNBA has to protect. Because I don't think the league has a popularity problem anymore. The numbers tell us that. The Fever tell us that. The Dallas Wings tell us that. The Atlanta Dream tell us that. The Las Vegas Aces and their multiple championships tell us that. The television networks tell us that. The fans tell us that. The question is whether the WNBA can manage this moment. Can it take all of this attention, all of these new fans, all of these new television viewers, and turn it into something that lasts? Because we're not just talking about 2026. We're talking about what the WNBA looks like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe even 20 years from now. And that's where this gets really interesting. So in closing, that's going to do it for this edition of the A-Train Sports Talk, also known as The Ride. We covered a lot this evening. Indiana Fever, the WNBA's incredible television numbers, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Stephanie White, Sophie Cunningham, the transgender athlete debate, the culture war, and ultimately the future of the WNBA. And I want to hear from you. Do you think the WNBA is handling this new level of attention the right way? Is the league doing a good job balancing basketball and cultural conversations surrounding it? And most importantly, can the WNBA turn this moment into long-term growth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. That's what makes the ride different. This isn't just me talking at you. We're having a conversation. I'm Anthony Smith, your host and conductor of the A-Train Sports Talk. Thank you for coming on board this evening. And remember, keep your eyes on the game, keep your mind in the zone, and never be afraid to have the conversation. Until next time, the A-Train is pulling out of the station. I'm Anthony Smith. We'll catch you on the next ride.